Okay, I'm sorry about that, everyone. We had a couple of glitches there, which I kind of figured would happen, being this is the first time that we're doing this. So I'm just waiting for Debbie right now. Just give her a minute to get back onto this Hangout. Hopefully this link, I'm going to look for the link and post this now in case we kind of lost some other people who are on it. Uh, hmm. Let me try to find the link here, and I'm going to just go over now and put this into the group. Let's see. Okay, let me just I'm putting this back in with this link here, and let's see if this works.
Can you see me? Can you hear me now, Christine?
I can hear you. I'm over now. I had to stop the first one and redo the other one. Can you see me right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, let me just post this link here and see if this is going to work, because I don't know what happened the first time. Okay, let me just see what's going on. Let me just go in here so people can get back to this.
Okay.
Okay, I gotta go to advanced settings. Let's see. Nope, that's not working. The first one I had set up correctly. Were you unable to get on that one?
I couldn't. I was on. I kept texting you that I was on. I kept writing in the box that I was on, but you couldn't hear or see me.
Yeah, it's really strange.
I could hear everything about you and see you.
And I'm trying to see. Let me just take a look to see. Okay, hold on. Event options, advanced options. I don't know why it's not letting me now post this on air. Okay, got it. Share events. Let me see what's going on with this. I just posted the link here, but I don't know if it's showing up in the actual event right now. I know people can watch it directly from YouTube as well. Let me grab that link and post that back in here, and then we'll begin. Okay. This is event page. I'm just going to post this because I'm not sure what was going on there while I couldn't see you. All right, let me go back over here, and then we can begin. Okay, please go to, okay, hopefully this is going to work. I don't know why that's not even pulling up.
We pray, we pray, we pray.
All right, well, okay, we're just going to begin, and then apologize to everybody if you were trying to get on this and you can't see it right now. Here, I had our theme song going there, too.
Aww.
Put it back on. There we go. Everything was going perfect, but then we couldn't find you. Something went wrong.
Here I am. Here I am.
All right, so here we are. Okay, now everything is working. Okay, so we have our toxic song. Today I'm going to redo the welcome. Welcome to Toxic People. How to break free, release yourself, and take back control. You have a toxic coworker, boss, family member, child, husband, wife. We're going to talk about it all today. I'm Christina Rowe. I'm with Debbie Sherrick. She is a codependency and holistic coach, and she is the expert in toxic people. So we're going to begin. I'm going to lower down this music. At least we got our theme music in there. Okay. Hello, Debbie. Okay, I see you. You see me. So this is our first Hangout, right?
Yes, our first Hangout. So this is a test drive, correct?
Yes, this is our test drive. So that's why I kind of try to warn people before on the first one that, you know, we may have some glitches here, so just bear with us. And of course, we had a glitch going right off the start, but so far so good right now. So
okay, so people are able to get on the call, you think, right now, or on the show?
Well, I believe we have yeah, they can now. I'm going to go over here and just see I can re-enable the chat. Let me get this chat box here, and let's just see. I'm going to put this back on, so if anybody wants to make a comment, chat. Okay. There we go. Okay, so if anybody has any questions and you're not being seen on the actual Hangout and you just want to watch, or you want to put a question up there, I've got the group chat and it's open. And we can, you have your little toolbox, Debbie. Do you want to put your lower third up? Oh, I went on the wrong thing here. I don't know if you still have it from yesterday, the Hangout toolbox.
Yeah.
Okay, so you still have to like reset your little color on here if you want to put it here and then turn it on. Okay, there's mine. Okay. So we'll see when you get that, and then we can start talking. So as you're doing that, Debbie, let's start with describing what a toxic person is in your definition with the work that you do.
Well, hang on now. Let me get this.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many definitions of a toxic person. I mean, when we think of people that are toxic, there can be so many, you know, variations of that. There can be people that are overly controlling. There can be people that are just constantly negative and complaining. There can be abusive people. And really, when we talk about toxic people, it's not just your family members or, you know, your spouse.
They could be toxic.
Yeah. It can be your coworkers and boss, you know, or boss. It can be people that, you know, you just can't get away from. Because if we have toxic friends or toxic acquaintances, you know, we can have a choice that person's too toxic and dysfunctional. I don't choose to be around them. But sometimes there's toxic people that we can't get away from because we live with them or we work with them.
That's the tough one. I mean, because it's easy if you have a friend, well, it's not that easy, but if you do have a friend who's toxic or somebody that you could change jobs or leave or do something, but if you're living with a toxic person right in your house, you know, then that really presents a big challenge.
Yes. And I thought that, you know, this would be a good topic for us. You know, we talked about, you know, what one we wanted to do first about toxic relationships because this time of year, the holidays, is when sometimes we're around family members that we choose not to be around the rest of the time of the year because they're too toxic. But during the holidays, you know, we might have Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner and tend to be around family a little more than we are the rest of the time of the year. So we thought that you know, talking about how we handle toxic relationships might be a good topic for right now.
Right, and there's so many, like you said, this is not just, you know, a relationship as far as, you know, a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other. I mean, you can go to work and, you know, have a lot of toxic people, you know, in your energy space. You know, you walk in and there's somebody really negative, or your boss is really mean and they're screaming. Or it could be a business partner, or, you know, somebody who's just really driving you crazy. So let's start with the business people who are on the call or having trouble with someone who they're working with. Now, if you can't quit your job, that's not an option. Right. What would you suggest that you do?
Well, you know, I do. It's funny you bring that up because I run into that with clients.
Talk to clients, right?
Well, I mean, they come and they say, look, I'm spending 8 to 10 hours on my job, and my boss is so controlling and critical and negative, and it's all I can do. You know, it's hard when you're trying to be positive and you're trying to, you know, have a positive spiritual attitude and look at the glass half full, and then you go to work and you have a colleague or a boss who's just constantly negative and criticizing and cutting you down. First of all, you know, sometimes I will ask, is it necessary, if it's really that bad, what's the payoff to you staying in that job? Sometimes it's not necessary to stay there if it's that toxic and that harmful to you. It might be worth it to look for another job. But sometimes the benefits, and they've been there for a long time, or a new boss has come in, you know, there's many reasons that they can't get away from that. I think, Christine, one of the biggest things is helping people or teaching people, and again, it's not easy, but teaching people not to take it personal. I think when we're like a sponge to people's behavior, and again, that is part of codependency, is that people act one way and we react. We take it personal. Our moods are gauged during the day of how they're acting. If they're in a bad mood, we're in a bad mood. If they're happy, then we're happy. So I think it's a really good opportunity to not take it personal, not walk on eggshells, to have to people please and make sure that I don't upset my boss, so he becomes upset. So we can get into a lot of codependency behaviors around toxic people.
Right, because you tend to do that. You tend to be like, well, this person, maybe if it's your boss is somebody who yells all the time, is very demanding, you may walk into work with a knot in your stomach and, and have to deal with it with this person. And I think what you brought up a good point. If it's possible to get out of that situation, and a lot of times you'll stay because of fear, because you're like, well, I'm not going to find, a better job. Yeah. The economy is not good, or I need this person. And this happens not just with working, for somebody, working with somebody and business partners and stuff. You think, all right, I've been working with this person for so long, and there's just no way I can, there's too much that we have involved together illegally. But you know what? The most freeing thing you can do sometimes is just to end it and let the cards fall where they may. It's. Yes. I just recently learned this lesson within my own life, and I'll tell you, it's been so many more better opportunities have come up because I had to release somebody who was extremely toxic, and I just had to say, I can't be around this person's energy anymore. Right. And it was a hard decision because it was a close friend, and it was, for years and in business. And I just, once I did that, though, new things opened up, and it was scary to do it first, but I'm very grateful that I've done it.
Yeah, yeah. And we have to ask ourselves that, sometimes we stay in toxic situations or toxic relationships because there's a payoff. Right. Maybe we're able to play the victim with this person. This person's toxic and negative, but we get to complain all the time about them, and we get to play the martyr because we're in this toxic environment that we can't get out of. So, sometimes when people are constantly complaining over and over, and this I call it telling their story over and over and over and over again, that I ask, what's the payoff that you continue to be engaged? And we have something that we call in codependency recovery, and I think this relates with toxic people or toxic relationships. We have something that we call a terminology that we call the dance. And the dance can be with your spouse, it can be with a child, it can be with your boss, whoever. But the dance is that there's a certain scenario that goes along with the relationship. One does something and says something negative, or does something, the other one reacts, and then the other one reacts, and then the other one reacts, and then they go back and forth. It might be that one person withdraws and becomes very passive and unavailable. Then the other person becomes angry and, outwardly telling the story and complaining about this person who is passive aggressive. And that's the dance that they do in the relationship. And there's a payout for that. It's familiar. They're used to it. It's familiar. And so one of the things that we teach is learning to get off the dance floor. You can't change other people. You can't change people being negative. You can't change people being controlling. You can't change people being unavailable. But you can change yourself, and you can change your perspective and your thoughts. And once you change and you make a decision that you're going to become empowered and do what you need to do to not hook in to this toxicity anymore, invariably the relationship has to change because the dance changes.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. So it's going to change either for the worse, like it's going to either be over or it will get better. Something's going to change.
Right. And, being a holistic codependency coach, holistic meaning, that we work mind, body, and spirit. So I work energetically a lot with people. And one of the things that I truly believe in is that we attract what we need in our life. And that old adage saying, we have people in our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And one of the things that I believe in is sometimes, I know for me personally, in my past, some of the most toxic people that I attracted in my life were great lessons for me and messengers. So I will say, don't shoot the messenger. What are you supposed to be learning in this toxic relationship? What do you think your lessons are in this that you can do for you, that you're supposed to step up to the plate and grow? Because energetically, we would not be attracting someone like that into our life unless there were lessons for us to learn and to grow. So it can be a great opportunity if we let it be a good opportunity.
That is a really great point. And so Well, I think what you're saying is that if you look for before you if you have to release this person out of your life, look for the lesson. And I can definitely say for the person I recently just released out of my life, I really learned some really big lessons, and I'm grateful for the
Yes.
having that person in my life for the time I did, and even going back to my ex-husband who was very toxic. I learned so much from that. I'm very grateful. Like I once wrote a blog post, so thank you to the other woman. So he's
Yes,
his
yes.
whole thing inspired my book. My whole life changed because of the divorce. So
Yes.
when I look back on that, that toxic relationship, was life changing for me in a very positive way. So I think that's a great point. So instead of just saying, okay, I'm getting rid of this person, I don't want to be around them anymore, and then you harboring that resentment deep inside you because you're still feeling angry, you're not seeing the gifts that that person brought you. I think what you're saying is see the gifts and let them go with love. But there's a lot of circumstances where I think, it's very difficult to keep somebody, if the energy changes like that with you and you grow and that person's still very toxic, to keep them, because like you said, it's not the same dynamic anymore.
That's right. And, that happens, and you see that a lot. If someone's really trying to get healthy and change their behaviors and change their belief system, and they are to the point of sick and tired of being sick and tired, and one of the first things that we have to do in order to make those changes, if we are with someone who is very toxic, is learn how to detach from their behavior while you're working on yourself. And that can be very, very difficult. I know in my second marriage, which was 7.5 years, was very, very toxic. And, I'm grateful to him today because he was my greatest messenger. I learned my biggest lessons about myself in that relationship, and I believe that I attracted that for that reason. And when I first started getting into my healing recovery years ago, a therapist said to me, she said, Debbie, it doesn't matter how toxic he is, it doesn't matter what he's doing in his life, you can be over here being happy, joyful, and free if you take your focus off him and start working on yourself. And at the time, I didn't understand that. I'm like, how can I live in a home with this controlling, abusive person who is so mean and toxic, and how can I still learn to be joyful, happy, and free over here? I just did not understand that. It didn't make sense to me. But it was because I was that sponge where how he acted, I would walk on eggshells, I was a people pleaser, I was his caretaker, I was his rescuer. So I myself had to learn how to stop doing those behaviors so I could grow and become healthier. And as I started to do that, and I started to learn boundaries, and I started to learn detaching from this person's behavior, and I started having tools to learn how to do these things, before I knew it, all of a sudden I would have a happy day. I would have a joyful day. Or no matter how he was behaving, I was learning that I knew how to be happy and take care of myself and detach from the behavior. Once that happened and I started growing and getting healthier energetically, what happens, either the other person will step up to the plate and start getting healthier also and changing their behaviors, or you will not fit anymore together energetically and you will go apart. So when I work with clients that are with very toxic people and they want to know, I got to make a decision. What should I do? What should I do? I say the first thing we're going to do is work on you and your own self-love and your own behaviors and get you stronger to where you can learn to take care of yourself and detach from this person personally, to where you can find joys and be creative and find happy things that bring you joy and fulfillment in your life, and have happy relationships of friends and other people in your life, to where you're at a place then to make a decision, a healthier decision. Now, what people like to do a lot of times when they're around toxic people is get into blame and victim. Look what this person's doing to me. Look how they're acting. Look how they're making me feel. Look what they said to me today. Look what they did to me yesterday. Like they have no power over that. And in their mind at that time, they don't feel that they do. But that can be also a dance that this toxic person, we're blaming them for how we're feeling. We're blaming them for our unhappiness. We're blaming them for being depressed and feeling trapped, realizing that we are responsible for our own happiness, and no one can make us feel anyway unless we allow it. And those are all things that, you know, come in time that we have to learn and take practice, because the other way is very familiar.
Those are really, really good points. And I think it's so important with that advice to try to work on yourself regardless of what's going on around you. And I know that's hard, especially if, you know, say you're married to somebody who's very toxic and you're coming home and the person's putting you down or just making life hell. It's hard not to focus on that, you know. But a lot of women have small children, or men, you know, they're trapped because they feel trapped because it's like financially maybe they can't move out. There's just stuff that's preventing them from separating from that person.
Yes.
So what you're saying is to really work on yourself first.
Yes, absolutely. And I was in that situation, you know. I had four kids, and I was at a homestay mom, and financially, you know, I did feel very trapped. I didn't see a way that I could get out and be by myself. So, which I look back now, you know, I had the opportunity to learn these tools and work these tools to where I got strong enough that I said, you know, I can take care of myself, and I am going to do this, and I'm not going to be in this toxic relationship anymore. One of the things, Christina, I think we should talk about, though, and bring out with toxic people, because we're talking about all different kinds of toxic relationships, and in saying what I was just saying about learning to how someone's acting and learning to detach from that, you know, we also have levels of things that are unacceptable behavior. When we talk about really verbal abusive and physically abusive situations that are toxic, those are situations where if you're physically being threatened, then you don't stay and learn your lessons.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's very important. You don't want anybody staying in a relationship where there's physical abuse.
No. However, when we learn in the process, when we're learning the detaching, it also is important to, if there is verbal abuse or emotional abuse, it's very important in learning detaching at that time to learn how to set boundaries, which are very foreign to those that come from codependency behavior and are used to codependency behavior, because they're not used to taking care of themselves and knowing how to set a boundary. So, you know, learning how to stand up for themselves and say, no, that's not okay. Learning how to walk away, learning how to, where the line is of detaching and where the line is of saying this cannot continue on, you know, with you speaking or treating me this way. And those are all really difficult things at first for people when they're not used to standing up and having personal boundaries. And I just thought of this. I feel like I need to say this too when we're talking about toxic relationships, is that we teach people how to treat us. And the way that we teach people how to treat us is right from the beginning is what we allow. And everything that we allow in the beginning of a relationship and on through the relationship is a message of teaching people what's okay and what's not okay and how they treat us. So our level, when people say, well, they show no respect to me, they treat me so disrespectfully, it all comes back always to us. And if we truly love and respect ourselves, then others will love and respect us also. So our relationships are the greatest mirrors into our own self. I remember complaining about my ex-husband's verbal and abuse and treatment and all, because I didn't know that I had taught him that it was okay, because I had no boundaries. You know, I was afraid to say no. I was afraid to stand up for myself. But yet, right in the beginning, there would be little, I look back at red flags, and there were little red flags and things that happened that today I would stand up for and say, I'm sorry, but that's not okay with me. Back then, because I was so afraid of rejection and abandonment, and people, I was wanted to be loved so much that I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't have any boundaries because I didn't want this person to leave me or not love me. So I really did teach him how to treat me. I taught him that treating me disrespectfully was okay.
So it's all when you in the beginning of the relationship, and that's when maybe you haven't grown to respect yourself enough or love yourself enough. That's when the dynamic changes, because the person who's being toxic is used to you being a certain way and accepting, you know, certain behaviors. And then when you start to grow and you're like, that's no longer acceptable, that's when the toxic person probably feels threatened, like, okay, this person's changing. That's, you know, I can't get away with this type of abuse anymore, and then that kind of rattles everything.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's a whole lot easier to teach people how to treat you at the beginning of the relationship. My younger clients that I have, young girls that are dating, I always encourage them to get that book, He's Just Not That Into You.
Oh, that's a great book, yes.
It's a great book of dating, and, you know, men wrote it, and they're really being honest and truthful with you about how, if a man is really honoring and cherishing and loving you, this is how he'll treat you. Because if women don't have enough, or people, we don't want to just say women, have enough self-love, they don't really know what that looks like to be really loved and cherished and treated in an honoring way. So they really don't know that it's not okay until it starts hurting and feeling bad. So it's always easier to, you know, start out looking for the red flags and teaching people how to treat you in the beginning of a relationship. Then once you've been in the relationship 10, 15, 20 years, and you're all of a sudden trying to turn things around, you know, and teach people, but it can be done. And I see it happen all the time, and I see the relationship getting so much stronger and happier because the person has their own self-love and self-respect, and the other person who was maybe toxic is starting to treat them better. However, I always warn people, when you start setting boundaries and you start saying no, which no is a complete sentence, and that we teach, you know, don't get into debating and defending yourself, just, you know, and when people are beginning to start boundaries, you really got to be supportive to them, because it's scary to them of what the other person's reaction will be. We say, you know, you can't take care of your own feelings and someone else's at the same time. It just doesn't work. So when you're taking care of yourself and starting to have some self-respect and self-love and starting to set boundaries, a lot of times you'll get backlash from the other person.
Right, because there's change.
There's change. You're changing the dynamic of the relationship, and they don't like it. They're losing control. Maybe they're not able to manipulate you anymore. And they see the other person going about their life and learning how to be happy, joyous, and free without them, and it gets scary to them. So I say you can expect some backlash, you know, but you got to stick with it because you'll feel better about it.
I like what you said about, you know, with the whole bringing up dating, you know, and it's hard for single women, you know, when you're out there trying to find someone and you're dating. And I think the key with that is exactly what you said, like the red flags when they come up, you know, don't make excuses for them, because that gets us into so much trouble. You know, when we're younger, we do that a lot. We're like, all right, well, you know, I'll change him, or, you know, that was a one-time thing. But those little red flags, if you look back on a relationship, or, oh, you always be like, see, that was there. There was a little white lie, or there was something there in the beginning.
Oh, so, definitely. Absolutely. I can look back at some of my toxic relationships and totally see red flags, you know, of things that I didn't see then.
Right, you see them later, but then they help you and, like, future relationships. Like,
Yes.
when I go out with somebody, like, and it sounds like I'm really picky, but if something comes up, you know, that it could be a stupid, like, kind of a stretching of the truth or anything, that I'm out of there. Or if they say they're going to call and they don't, or whatever, and then they call an hour later, they're irresponsible, I'm out of there. You know, I don't go for second chances anymore because I'm in my 40s. I'm not doing that anymore. I respect myself enough to say, you know, that's it. I'm treated this way, and I'm happy with myself. So if you don't like it, tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings up another good point is in a toxic relationship is that some people will make excuses and rescue the other person for acting toxic. You know, that way they can avoid and they don't have to confront the situation because they don't like confrontation. So avoidance is another sign in a relationship that there might be some toxic treatment or behavior going on, but the other person is avoiding, and because they don't want the confrontation, and they will make excuses for the other person. Oh, he's working hard, or she's under a lot of stress, or she's doing this. And granted, we all get into moods and bad moods and you know, have our days, but we're not talking about that today. We're talking about continually having toxic, you know, being in a toxic relationship.
These are coming up over and over again.
Yes, yes. One thing that I see a lot of that's toxic is people being addicted in their relationships to drama. A lot of drama and crisis. And, you know, in my studies and learning about recovery with codependency and in dysfunctional relationships, I learned and saw that there is a lot of research about drama and crisis being physically addictive. And that what happens is that our adrenal glands, you know, which are the fight and flight, and with drama and crisis, we secrete a lot of that adrenaline. And that adrenaline can be addictive physically, having that adrenaline rush. You know, we find this also with addicts. And, you know, it affects certain parts of the brain, the pleasure center of the brain. And with the drama and crisis, it can be addictive for the adrenaline rush, because they may have grown up, or they've always been in relationships in their life where they grew up where drama was normal and familiar to them. So they get in a relationship and a little while goes by and there's no drama and crisis, that they will subconsciously create something to have drama and that crisis, and that's another dance that couples or people can do, is the drama, the crisis, and then the makeup. And then a while goes by and there's drama, crisis, and the makeup. You know, and that becomes a pattern, and that becomes a dance that they do. So I will see people come and complain about the drama and crisis, but once we see that they get to see that how they play a part in that, and how they could be maybe addicted to that. So that's another way of, that's another type of toxic relationship, is that there is constant drama and crisis going on in the relationship.
And that's from, like, when you growing up like that, and that also happens in the one person maybe who grew up like that and wants the drama subconsciously, and then tries to fix the other person, you know, maybe because they're playing the role of mom or dad, and then, you know, it just get the parents' relationship is being played out again.
Yeah, and I'll use myself as an example. I mean, I'm always very open and vulnerable about why I do what I do and where I came from, because I was the queen of codependency and the queen of, you know, I grew up in a very drama, you know, alcoholic, physically abusive home, and when that time would come, and there was such a pattern, you know, of every 4 to 5 weeks. Let me get that. That there would be crisis and drama in my home. So when that happens, when you grow up in a home where there is, you know, lows and highs, and then very low lows, and crisis going on, you grow up learning you wait for the other shoe to drop all the time. You don't realize you're waiting for that or doing it, but you get accustomed to that drama, and it becomes so familiar. So again, I didn't even realize in my first marriage I married someone who was very, very passive and non-confrontational. I probably chose him because I had so much of that in my growing up. So he was the opposite, where he hated to talk about feelings, he hated to argue, he hated confrontation, he avoided it at all costs. Well, here I came from a home that was used to arguing, used to confrontation, used to drama. So in our first years of marriage, I learned later that I would create an argument, or I would create a crisis or drama so we could argue, or we could have some type of, because I was so used to that. It was so familiar to me in my growing up. I didn't know subconsciously that that's what I was doing, or that's what I needed to have in order to feel safe. It was just familiar to me.
So recreating the past.
Yep, recreating my belief system. Yes, yep. So let's talk about right now around the holidays. Sometimes we're around, as I said, family members that maybe are addictive or toxic. Maybe they're critical or shaming, or whatever the behavior might be. And what's some of the ways that we can handle? I think it's important to talk today a little bit about how do we handle being around these toxic people. You know, because we have we always have options. And I think we need to stress that there are certain times that we need to look at, is there an option that we have to be around this person? Do we have a choice? Sometimes people will go, I hear this a lot, people will go to family gatherings because they don't want to upset grandma, or they don't want to upset mom. So they say, I have to go and be around my brother. I have to go bring around my toxic drunk aunt because I really don't want to upset the other family members. And I think it's really important at this time of year that we really look and take care of ourselves and ask, you know, is this comfortable? Is this honoring to me? And is this something that I'm choosing to do for me, that I want to do? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to people please other members of my family because I'm afraid of their reaction, or I'm afraid that they'll get mad at me and they'll get angry? And if that's the case, that we're people pleasing other people and we're choosing to be around toxic people because we don't want to upset people, then that comes back to be our problem. Then we need to look at that.
That's a hard, really, really difficult one. And because when you have, and like especially it's really difficult for the person who's in the middle of it. And I can use a personal example of that with my ex-husband. My mother and brother, since the divorce, want nothing to do ever with my ex-husband. They will not go to certain things. Luckily, he was in another state, but when there was certain things, they won't go if he's there. And that always put me in a position because of my kids and like them, and you know, it was really, really hard being in that position. I understood their point of it, but then I also said, well, you know, I felt like, can't you just ignore them? You know, so what do you suggest somebody do? Because like you're in that situation, and then so your children feel bad, and everybody feels bad, and you know, and I see this in a lot of families. You know, cousins hate each other, so then who do you invite? You can't invite this cousin, or you know, one ex's family's on one side of the room and they're on the other, and the adult children are there, and the grandkids feel the tension. That's a really hard thing with toxic family members. Yeah,
it is. It really is. And that's why I said there can be different options. The main thing is, how can I make this a happy situation, an environment for my family? What's going to be, because if someone's choosing to not come and be around, you know, your spouse, or they say, I'm not coming because so-and-so is going to be there.
Right.
We can't control that. You know, we cannot control that person. It may hurt our feelings. we can tell them, you know, it makes me very sad that you can't be here, and we're going to miss you. But, you know, we don't want to shame someone into coming. We don't want to guilt them into coming. So we have to, no matter whether we think it's right or wrong, we have to honor other people's feelings of, I'm choosing not to come. I'm choosing, you know, and it may be that they're being, you know, stupid about it, or that they're being overreactive about it, and maybe it's not such a big deal that they could come. But again, you know, that can be their way of control and having a little drama. So we can't control other people. Hang on, Christine.
Sure.
Would you talk a minute? I need to go get the plug-in. I didn't bring the plug-in.
Sure, go ahead. No, I think you definitely brought up some great points, Debbie, because it's really hard, especially this time of year with the holidays, that we're having to see people maybe we haven't seen, you know, all year long, and now Christmas and, you know, all the holidays, Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and all the holidays are here, and there's parties, and these people we may not like will be there, but yeah, we may want to see other family members. So I think it's a personal decision. I think what Debbie just said was really important about respecting other people's boundaries. And I think that was a great point, what you said, Debbie. We really have to respect somebody's choice who may say, you know, they're doing it for their own sanity. You know, we can't judge why they may not like a specific person. That person could be toxic to them, so we can't judge them and say, well, we can't have them, we're going to try to force people who don't like each other to be together just because it's the holidays. So no, I agree with that 100%. I think we may have just lost Debbie. I don't see her on here. She'll probably just pop in a second. And when we get back, after we talk about when she comes back on about the holidays, I also want to bring up, toxic, believe it or not, children and parents, which that's really, really, really hard. Because they're people we love very much, but yet we can have these relationships where we could have, maybe a teenager who's driving you absolutely crazy, or an elderly parent, or, somebody who just your whole life has been, making you miserable. And these are people that you want to be with around the holidays and you love them. And it's not so easy just to say, all right, you're out of my life. I'm cutting you out forever, because these people are, important to you, but yet they can still be toxic. So I want to get Debbie's opinion on that. I'm just going to go over here now. I think we lost her off the call. Let me re-invite her. Let me see the right thing to put over here. This is okay. Just bear with me for 1 second. Let me see if there's any questions. Okay. Oops. Okay. Now, let me see here if we can get her back on. Sorry, everyone. It was going so well. Let's see. I'm going to see on. See if I can turn this on. No, I can't turn that on. All right, we'll find you, Debbie. Let's see. Here we go. I think once we get the hang of this, these will go much smoother. Okay. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry.
Oh, got you. Okay, no problem. I just re-invited you just in case.
No. Thank you guys for giving us grace today, our first show, because I didn't even realize that I didn't have my my laptop plugged in. So I had to hurry and go get the plug-in. But anyway, were you continuing to talk? We were talking.
Yeah. What I was bringing up was, now with the holidays and with everything going on, and what I was saying is, what about like people that we really dearly love in our life, like children and parents that can drive us crazy, that can be toxic, but these are people that there's no way we're ever going to, eliminate them out of our lives. We love these people, but what do we do, to take back some control and reduce stress, especially around the holidays now?
So you're talking about people that are like toxic, but you love them and you want to be around them?
Like your children, for example. I mean, like, I'm sure there's so many people, right, you have teenagers that drive you crazy, or maybe you have, unfortunately, an addicted child, or, and you could have a parent who's very critical. I was watching one of the Real Housewives shows. I think it was the Atlanta Housewives show, and the mother of one of the women on there she like hates all of her boyfriends and was saying terrible things about her fiance, was criticizing the woman's ring besides her. And I'm thinking, God, that's really toxic. But this is the woman's mother, so it's a perfect example. She can't just say, okay, to her elderly mother, you're toxic, get out, I don't want anything to do with you. So what do people do, when you have these children and parents and you just can't say goodbye, but yet it's really hard to live with them?
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. It's a toughie. And again, I think that's where us being secure in boundaries with them and speaking, maybe an example might be that you speak to them first. If it's someone who's causing drama at the family gatherings or being very critical, that you might speak to them alone first and say, this is how I feel, and always addressing their behavior, not them as a person. When this is done, this is how I feel, and in my home, I really don't want that kind of behavior. So please, when Christmas comes up and we're having dinner, please don't be criticizing Lisa over here and tearing her down like you usually do. I would like to not have that in my home. When you have a lot of kids, you usually have drama, and I have four adult children, and they have their significant others, and there's a mix of all kinds of things going on in the relationships, as all relationships do. And sometimes when my four will get together, there's some competitiveness going on and some things said, or so before Thanksgiving, I individually, each one of them, I said, there's not going to be any arguing or any drama during Thanksgiving, or you're going to have to leave. I just told them individually. So
would you have done it though? Would you have actually told one of them to leave?
If the drama, if it would have gotten heightened, into really getting nasty, then I would have tried to step in and stop it. But if one would have gotten really ugly and nasty, then I really think that I would have, which I don't think that it would have got, but they can tend to get together and have drama, So we can, beforehand, we can tell people, look, it's not okay, and, that you're going to be acting this way. I would prefer you not to act this way, when you come to my home. It's not okay with me, and it makes me uncomfortable. So I love you being there, and I want to be with you, but please don't be attacking Johnny or Lisa today or next week when we have our dinner together. And they'll probably defend themselves and make all kinds of excuses, but at least you've set that boundary, that you have spoken to them about it. So that way, you can't assume. If you don't say anything and they do that, then you can't really assume them to act in a healthy way if you haven't spoken to them about it. Now, another thing that we can do is, when there are people that act a certain way, family members that we're around, is that we can choose to just disengage and walk away. Just remove ourselves and walk away from the person. Choose to not be around them that much time of the day, and not take it personal, whatever they're doing. There's so many different levels of when you get a huge group of family members. We had about almost 30 people at our house for Thanksgiving. We had friends and family members and my siblings and their kids. And when you get a large group of family members together, all your family issues come out. All your stuff is going to come out.
Especially if people are drinking.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Once people have had a couple glasses of wine or beer, then you're going to have, things are going to come out. But we're so much better than we used to be, because so many of us have gotten in recovery and gotten therapy and gotten help. So we're better than we used to be. I can remember growing up, family functions were always huge crisis. There was always, one of the uncles or one of the aunts or one of the cousins. Something always happened during the holidays. At a gathering or a birthday party. It didn't have to be the holidays or a birthday party or something. There would just always be something. So I think detaching and not taking things personal and walking away. And there's, again, you have to decide your boundary lines of what's acceptable and what's not. I tell people, because in the beginning, when people are learning to set boundaries and people are learning to stand up for themselves and love and respect themselves, sometimes their boundaries, their property lines are huge. You know, it's like they don't accept anything anymore.
Right.
So I say, you know, we have to learn to pick our battles. What's a deal breaker for you, and what's something that you can walk away from and not engage in, you know, that you don't have to make it a battle. And I think that, you know, that comes with growth, and as we get healthier, we learn what we can just detach and walk away from and not engage in, and then some things are, you know, big and totally unacceptable, and that we want to address it.
And I think you brought up a good point, though, when you set these boundaries about following through. Because if you don't follow through, then the next time the people are not going to believe you. If you say, well, if you do this, I'm not going to accept that, but then you accept it, then you've got a big problem, because now you've just, you know, they're going to say, oh, she's just saying that again. Yeah,
that's a great point, because when I have someone who's starting to work with boundaries and we're writing them out, you know, let's set this boundary. I always have them write, okay, what's the worst scenario that can happen if you set this boundary? Because just stating it and not following through with it gives you no credibility. And, you know, that's something I had to learn and practice. You know, I would threaten and say my boundaries, you know, with my ex-husband, and say, if you do this one more time, I'm going to do this. This is not acceptable to me, and I'm not going to be treated that way. And then I would say it again, and, you know, and it was like that boundary meant nothing, because following through with action is the hard part.
Right, that's the difficult part.
Yeah, and we have to realize, too, in dealing with people that are toxic, to believe what people show you, not just what they say. Because people can say anything and promise anything, you know, with manipulation and just to stop the battle or arguing. They'll tell you or promise you anything. So it's always important to believe what people are showing you. Their actions are who they are. And the same with us, you know, when we're setting a boundary, we have to be able to follow through with what we're saying, or we lose the credibility of what we told them.
I love that, what you say about, you know, seeing people for who they are. I think there's a quote, I don't know if Oprah said it, or it was something about, you know, when people show you who they are the first time, believe them. And that always stuck with me, because it's so true. Like, you can see somebody and you see who they are, and then you're like, oh, well, you make those little excuses for them, and then before you know it, you're in a toxic, you know, situation with this person. And you just, because you ignored that little voice, you know, in the pit of your stomach, like just seeing that this person may not have, you know, the type of qualities that you want in a person in your life.
Yeah, and at first, because as I said, we want to be loved. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid if we stand up for ourselves and address the behavior that they'll leave us, or they'll get mad, you know, or they'll reject us. So we ignore. And but people, they do show you, and there are signs. You know, sometimes we don't want to look at them, but there are.
Yeah, that's so true. Because one of the things too is when you don't want to look at it, you like turn a blind eye, and that's recently what I did for a very long time with the person that I released out of my life. Is I would always just like and I look back now, I'm like, what the heck? What was I doing? Like this behavior would go on literally in front of me, and I would just like act like it kind of wasn't happening. Yeah. And then when I finally like woke up, I was like, my gosh, you know, what the heck was wrong with me? Why was I not paying attention to this person's behavior that other people around me were? Now I know they were all seeing it the whole time, and I wasn't seeing it. I just wanted to, you know, believe that this person was going to change, that they were going to be different, you know, that they had a life circumstances that were making them this way, and it wasn't their fault, you know, and that they were going to get better. And it's really kind of scary that we can do that as people, that we can turn that blind eye to really bad behavior.
Well, I think we're all guilty of that. It's like the easier, softer way that problems are denied in hopes that they'll go away or they'll get better. And again, you know, we can't make someone be healthy. We can't make someone see the light. We can't get people to get it. You know, we spend a lot of wasted energy trying to get people to get it, when we have to look at what we need to do for us to become happy, for us to stay centered and make sure that we're not reacting and engaging in a dysfunctional dance with them. Comes back to our own self-love and self-respect, and hoping and praying that, maybe that person will get help and will make changes. But if not, if they choose not to, then we can go about our way in what we need to do for us, and taking care of us and working on our issues, what our lessons are in the relationship, and what our part is in the relationship, and learn to make ourselves healthy. And when we get to that place is when we can make a decision of whether we want to stay in the relationship or not, or whether it's best for us. Or some people, they just have gotten so happy in their life and involved in other things that they're able to stay detached from that person or that partner.
Right, and they can be able to. And I think I think you have 4 kids, I have 4 kids, and I kind of think too, people who have children are a little motherly, and we have, we kind of want to look at the best in people. We want to take care of people. We just have that way about us because, especially with a lot of children. I think and I think there's probably a lot of people watching this who are the same way. We don't want to see the bad in people. We want to look for the good, but unfortunately, it could be staring us in the face, and it could be a huge red flag and warning sign to, go the other way, and it could save you a lot of heartache.
Yeah, I think, I wrote you an email last night in response to your email. I don't know if you were able to read it yet.
Oh, yes, I didn't respond yet, but yes.
Yeah. And I said that, one of the hardest things to do is when you have children, and when you have adult children, and when they're acting out in a way that with their lessons that they're learning in relationships, or their behavior is toxic or dysfunctional, and they're learning in life how to make their decisions and learning their lessons. It's very hard as mothers to not want to show them the way, not to rescue them, to tell them what they're doing wrong, to get involved in their business,
Right.
And I think that's one of the hardest things, is setting boundaries and letting go with love of your adult children. And
that's really hard.
Very hard, and me as a codependency coach, I see things in my kids, I'm not the one at all. I'm their mom, so I'm not the one for them to come to for that kind of relationship. I'm their mom, and there's too much of an emotional connection there. So I have found, the best thing is to direct them to someone else if it's something that they need therapy about or they need help about, and to just have a listening ear, and if they be there available, that they feel safe to share with you whatever they need to share with you without us telling them what they need to be doing.
Right, and giving them that freedom. So I'm sorry about the interruption. My little guy, Luigi, here, he's been sitting on my lap quietly until now.
He wants to be on the show.
He wants to be on the show. Yeah, well, it's talking about dysfunctional. Here. He's a big child, and he's very spoiled.
Is that somebody talking about me? I heard somebody talking about me.
Yeah, he's like, okay, he loves mommy, but he's very, very spoiled. Yeah, we do it with our pets, we do it with our kids, where we just have that way about us. And I think this was really great today, though, because that's the takeaway that I'm getting from this whole conversation. We're at 2 o'clock, so we're going to have to end this in a couple minutes. But I think is that the self-love. I want to go back to that just for a second, have you close with that, about how that's really the key. The more self-love you feel for yourself, the less you're going to tolerate, the more boundaries you'll put up, the more stronger you will be, and you'll be able to take back control by working on yourself.
Yeah. I have a story that I always tell. When I went to my first addiction therapist, because my ex-husband was an addict, and I went to her, and the first session I sat down with her, and I said, I need you to teach me, to help me learn how to get my husband to stop using drugs. And she asked me if I knew what codependency was. And I said, no. And she said, well, do you realize that you're just as sick as he is if you're in this relationship. And I was so offended when she said that. I said, what do you mean I'm as sick as he is? You know, I'm the one that's responsible. I take care of the home. I take care of the kids. I'm this, I'm that. I'm in church every week. You know, I was the hero of the relationship, but I was acting out all of my codependency. And thus then began my journey of realizing that I would not have been with someone that dysfunctional and toxic if I had a higher opinion and self-esteem, self-love of myself. And so I went in wanting to know how to change him and what I needed to do, what I was doing wrong that he was still, you know, continuing to relapse or use, and thus began my journey of my own, working on my own childhood, my own belief system, learning about codependency, and learning to have self-love and self-respect in treating myself in that matter. And I will tell clients, say, we're going to begin a journey of you treating yourself and loving yourself in the way that you want your significant other to treat you. You're going to start treating yourself that way, because we can't make someone treat us a certain way.
Absolutely. I think that's really, really important. What you're saying about that is it all begins, right? It begins and ends with that self-love.
Yep. Yep. So
one other thing I want to just leave with that I recently read that I thought was really, really clever for this whole toxic, you know, dealing with toxic people. I was listening to a podcast, and they said, you know, there's different types of people in your life. There, the 3-minute person, maybe that's a neighbor, somebody just say hi, hello, goodbye. There's like a 3-hour person you can only tolerate for 3 hours. There's maybe a 3-day person, you know, you can hang out for the weekend, but that's it. And so on. And people maybe you can go away. So it's interesting. Maybe you could put people in those kind of categories too without eliminating them completely from your life. Well, that's a person that, you know, I'm going to see occasionally for only this amount of time. And that may help too. Yeah.
And, you know, another good point is that when someone is acting out in a dysfunctional way or toxic way, how we react to that speaks volumes about ourselves. If someone else is acting out in a very negative, toxic way, and we are overly reacting to that, and we're letting that bother us when it really has nothing to do with us, it's them, it's their stuff and how they're acting, then it comes down to what is it within us, what is it within me that I am so overly reacting to this person's behavior.
That's really true. It's a trigger.
It's a trigger. There's something in me that person, what they're doing over there, that's not affecting me. You know, I'm just reacting to how they're behaving. If I'm overreacting to that, then it's definitely something within me. It's issues and things within me that I'm not dealing with.
That's a really, really interesting. And like you're saying, like people are a mirror. And I think that would be a great subject for another time for another call. It's just doing something on how the mirror, like finding the things then in others that we react to, because it's so true. Like certain things for you may not bother you at all, but then somebody could say something, and it's like that button gets pushed, and boom. Yeah. And that's when you know you have a problem. So that's another great. I think it really could get into deep. You can definitely help a lot of people with that.
Yeah, that could be a series.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
About that.
That could be an entire series, right?
Yeah.
And we're constantly our buttons are being pushed, and then we kind of wonder sometimes, like, why did I react so, you know, that way? And we don't even know why we reacted that way. Just some sort of button was pushed from the past, and then we think that person's a toxic person. So
yeah, that's right. And you know, nobody can push our buttons more than our family members. You know, the people that we love and that know us the most, and we know them the most. You know, those family buttons, we call them, that it just stirs up, you know, things within us. But I think it's a really good gauge when we can not defend and debate and blame, when we can detach from someone's behavior and not take it personal and not react to it. It shows that we've had growth, that this is their stuff. We're letting them own it. We're not going to own it, and I'm going to walk away and detach from this and ask myself, what do I need to do right now to take care of myself in this situation. And we call that learning to rescue ourselves, because we're used to rescuing others.
I love that. And on that note, I wanted to, I know we don't have it set up yet, but Debbie has a great free gift, which is signs, the 10 signs that you're in a toxic relationship. So can we give out your email address? Would that be possible? And then we could send them the PDF?
Yes. You want my web address or email?
How about, because it's not on the website yet, why don't we give
Okay.
you an email, and this so they can email you, and you can email them back and give them the PDF, and it really has really some great tips in there with signs about the 10 signs, you know, that you are in a toxic relationship.
Yes. If you don't have my email address yet, my email address is Debbie@InsideOutWellnessCoach.com.
Great. So that's InsideOutWellnessCoach.com. Debbie that's also her website, InsideOutWellnessCoach.com. And I want to just wish everybody a happy holiday, and you know, I hope today that you've gotten some good tips from today that you can take with you through the holiday season, and that you know you can limit your exposure to the toxic people in your life and get through this tough time, right?
That's right.
And we'll have to play our song as our outro here.
Good. Thanks everybody for being on.
Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.